should say enemas, but colon cleansing. Let's do that right. I remember as I studied and learned from him and through my mom, I remember times that some people think that you can go in there and cleanse a colon and you can do it in a week. Or some people think you can go in and cleanse a colon and you can do it in a couple of weeks, or one box of a cleanse, or one program. Understand, Dr. Jensen, from the get-go, always told us, every one of us, that you're never going to get your colon cleansed in less than 90 days. Now that means in order to do a true effective cleanse to the bowel for proper elimination, it's going to be a 90-day program, and it's going to be something you need to stick with for that 90 days. And I remember, I mean, even at his farm, the people that he would work with, I just remember that he would just take and constantly be working on colon, working on colon, working on colon. When you thought there was no way that there possibly could be anything more, than the patient or the person that he was working with would evacuate things, or the lining off the bowel wall that had polyps on it, or whatever the case might be. And so it goes to show you that he knew that if the colon wasn't cleansed, then basically the bottom line is no matter what, the rest of the body was not going to function correctly. Even to a point now, and I'm going to, before we jump into this part, just to show you the importance of it too, if you're looking at modern day now, as far as some of the challenges we're seeing, as far as the intestinal colon, and we can go through constipation, we can go through diarrhea, which is the common ones, celiac, you hear that often, you hear Crohn's, which is a big one, IBS, IBM, all those things are things that medically people are diagnosed with all the time. And you know, it's really interesting in the fact that I remember Dr. Jensen, he did a study in embryology. I can't even talk about it or say it today. Embryology, and with that, when the embryo is actually developing, okay, in the first stages of this development, as the brain and as the spinal cord is developing exactly parallel to that at the same time, so is the colon. Okay, so is the small and the large intestine, parallel directly to the brain and to the nervous system. Well, now we're finding that, and I need to back up, one day, he said one day that's going to be significant. He said that's going to be important. He says, I'm not sure exactly what that means. He says, but that's going to be important. And then we're going to talk about iridology and the different things with the intestinal region, the colon region on the 1st of July, which will be where we really get down and dirty with this. But in iridology, you'll notice on your belt of expression, your autonomic nerve wreath, if you will, that anything that sits inside the autonomic nerve wreath is a reflection of what's going on in the bowel. And because of that, toxins or congestion or weakness in the bowel, it represents the weakness that's going on to the organ outside of that, which we'll explain more of that with the class. But what that did mean is Dr. Jensen was right on when he said, you know what, when that bowel was parallel to the embryo, or to the nervous system, the brain, the nervous system, as it was developing, what we found was the intertwining of the nerves. And so what happens is when that bowel was weak, it was putting all these toxins into different organs, different areas of the body. So that relationship was there and very, very strong. So even when you look at like different pressure points and stuff like that, we have them all along the bowel. There's a certain part of the bowel that deals with your heart, a certain part of the bowel that deals with the bowel. There's a certain part of the bowel that actually deals with the brain, you know. So anyway, a lot of neat things, which we'll get into more of that, but I get excited about this and we could go all night, but we're going to jump into this. So to begin with, as you look at the colon, which we're going to work with tonight, I want to talk mainly about obviously the large intestine, but understand, because we'll get more into the small intestine as we take and work with the digestive system, but understand that small intestine is a big part of what's going on here as well too. Small intestine, we have digestive activity that does take place, but still that small intestine is part of our elimination system. Tonight, we're working with one of the 5 elimination systems of the body. Okay, there's 5 elimination systems. We have the skin, we have the kidneys, we have the liver, we have the respiratory mucus locations of the body, and then we have the intestinal colon. Okay, and so we're going to work with one of those because, and just keep it in mind as far as significance here. Know that in order to build or repair or strengthen anything, if there is any congestion or toxins within that organ, that gland, that area of the body, if you don't first get rid of those toxins, or there's poisons or what have you that might be in that area, there's no way to build that and get it to actually function long term. Okay, sometimes people will go in and do things and they'll get a little bit of a temporary fix, but then because they didn't go and cleanse all that stuff out and move all the toxins, poisons, whatever the case might be out of that, then shortly after a while, I mean, and usually it's not very much time, we're already having the condition flare again. Okay, so understand, elimination is everything. And that bowel part, the reason I give you that story or example is the fact that this bowel is the part of getting those toxins out of there. It's a part of what we're going to do to keep our body clean and functioning correctly. So working with it, obviously we have the small intestine. Got a little bit of a chart here. I don't know if you can see it very well. We got a small intestine that sits all through this medial region, which is quite long. It'll surprise you how long it actually is. Then it hooks right in here at the large intestine, which is kind of neat because we look at that. That's where that ileocecal valve, that's where the valve between the small intestine and the large intestine sit, and this valve opens and closes to help with moving stuff from that small intestine to the large intestine so that we don't get that back flush that will go back into the small intestine. So it's really important for that ileocecal valve. And then as we go up the right side of the body, you're going to have the ascending colon. Then makes a loop, goes through the transverse colon. Many conditions show up in this area right here. This kind of defies gravity. And I'm going to kind of put a little note right here. Lots of times some of the weakest areas of the bowel will sit in this part of the transverse colon, which is pre-splenic flexure. This area, this loop that sits right over on this left side that comes under the rib cage, left side and under the heart area, that's what we call a splenic flexure. Why? Because this is right next to the spleen. But that splenic flexure sometimes is a really rough region to get toxins through. It's an area that gets backed up as far as a lot of congestion. So lots of times a lot of people will have the biggest issues right here in this area, right around the splenic flexure or pre-splenic flexure there. Okay, once it makes that, as it moves through, and remember everything works clockwise, blood circulates clockwise, bowels eliminate clockwise, it's going to go into your descending colon. As it goes down the descending colon, which I see a lot of stress there, and the reason I see a lot of stress in that descending colon many times is not only is this a problem area, but by the time you get to this area from this part of the transverse colon, the splenic flexure and down the descending colon, that is where I see a majority of the stresses. Now I'm not saying we can't see it over here, but the majority of the congestion, the pockets that build up, and if you will. And the reason is because this is also the last part, again, to be hydrated. So things are not even getting hydrated enough to move things out of that intestinal colon. And then of course it makes the loop right here at what we call the sigmoid and right into the rectum area or the anal canal there, if you will. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with as you go through the colon or the intestine here. And our number one goal tonight is to get you acquainted with what we need to do to keep this cleansed in order to keep our body healthy. Quick note, real quick. In Chinese medicine refers to the colon as being part of the metal, M-E-T-A-L, metal element. Now understand, when you work with the metal element, what the metal element consists of is the colon, and it consists of the sinus, lung, and bronchial. So Chinese will tell you that if your colon is a problem or an issue or a weakness, then so is your lung, bronchial, and sinus. Lung, bronchial, throat, and sinus. Okay, so if your respiratory system, if that respiratory is a problem up here, then it's also going to be significant in telling us that the intestinal colon or the colon is a problem. So understand, by cleansing the colon, automatically we're going to get things to move and eliminate and flush through which is another elimination system, through this respiratory system up here too. Okay, so keys to a colon that's healthy. We talked about fiber, pure water, proper diet, eating right. We know that. Not as easy as it used to be. We have to work a little harder on it. And sometimes I wonder if God really intended it to be this difficult, because so many times we find so many different things that used to be simple, very difficult as far as the colon anymore. So sometimes I wonder about that. Exercise. We know that exercise is big. That's the one thing that exercise is one. It's great to build muscle. It's great to tone muscle. It's great to build the cardio. But also with that, exercise is one of the best things to help with elimination. Okay? And of course, stress. Now, I'm going to go into this just a little bit real quick before we go in and start talking about the cleanses. What does stress have to do with the bowel? Well, some of you'll realize, because you've had it in your life, many times when people get stressed, guess what? There's three muscle groups in the body, or sorry, three muscles within the body, three types of muscles, let's say that right. And in the muscle, as far as muscles are concerned, we have the striated muscles. Striated muscles have everything to do with our structural system. It's going to be the ones that our pectoral majors, it's the one that works with our biceps, it's the one that these muscles are striated, okay? And meaning that they look like these big old bands that run through different areas to keep everything strong and healthy. Well, that's one. Cardio is another, which is all your heart circulatory. But the other one is what we call smooth muscle. Smooth muscle deals with organs, and definitely is going to deal with the intestinal colon region, obviously being part of the smooth muscle. Well, still, even though it is different than the striated muscle, and the reason I'm saying this is anytime you get stressed, how many of you recognize that you tighten up through the neck, through the shoulders? You tighten up in different areas of the body. You'll take and hold yourself really tight. Muscles will constrict when we're stressed, and many times we don't even know it. Well, guess what happens to the bowel? That's what's going on with the striated muscle, but guess what happens to the smooth muscle? It does exactly the same thing. So when this bowel, or this colon, has a tendency to contract like that or tighten up like that, we lose peristalsis, which in those situations it can actually cause diarrhea in some people. Other people it can cause constipation issues. Okay, so with that, we know that stress is a big factor. Okay, obviously when we're dealing with a lot of stress, which we see that in our world right now with everything that's crazy and upside down with this coronavirus and all the problems that are going on with the protest and all the anyway, there's just a whole lot of stuff that's going on right now. A lot of people are stressed. I've got a lot of clients that come in now that some of my clients that come in now that I look at them as far as being you know, as far as worry and concern, there are a few of those that seem to never have a problem. Even those people are struggling right now, so it's a crazy time. But know that stress can be a big factor as far as how well that colon flushes or eliminates or functions correctly in the body. And then of course the friendly flora. We're going to talk about the probiotics and different things of that nature at the end here as we get to the latter part of the discussion with the nutrition here. So building that friendly flora, keeping that friendly flora within that balance is a necessity in terms of immune responses and an overall healthy body. Okay, so that front page will give you the description of what's going on here as far as the areas that we're working with in the body today as far as nutrition. It's also going to take and give you a kind of a breakdown of what it is so that you have an idea where the different areas are. But I like these keys to the colon health because colon health I don't think that is ever taken serious enough, and that's one thing that causes so many problems in people's lives is the fact that they're just not keeping their body detoxed in a way or healthy enough as far as toxicity to actually get the normal function of the body that it needs. And so Dr. Jansen, I remember he always talked about, you know what, you should take, and remember when I talked about a colon cleanse and lasting at least 90 days, he always said if you're not doing at least one a year, he says, then you're in big trouble. But he says you should be at least doing what we call a biannual or twice a year, a good heavy duty 90-day colon detox. Okay, your body will run so much better if we get this colon cleanse so that it can also pull all the rest of the toxins out of the body and keep all that elimination happening correctly. Because when the colon's not flushing, we got to remember all those toxins build up, they're recycled, they move through the body, they go in and start causing all kinds of organ damage and all kinds of weak conditions and problems down the road. So, so let's get into the nutrition. Now I'm going to go through the nutrition. There are a lot of colon cleanses, guys. There's a lot of things that are out there. I spent my time on just writing a few of them that I've used over the years that I've had success with. But I want you to know that there's a lot of colon cleanses that are out there that are very good. They're impressive in a lot of ways. There's even people that will take and spend a little bit of time, which I have done, which sometimes I felt like was a little bit embarrassing. But you know what? In my condition and where I was in my life that time, it was life-saving, and that's colon therapy. So besides all the stuff that I was doing to cleanse my colon, to pull the toxins out, and so on and so forth, to get rid of the issues that I was having, that colon therapy was also something that helped me get through that. That was something that worked from the bottom end up to keep things flushing. Okay, terrible, right? But anyway, let's not go there. So let's start into the first cleanse here. Okay, now this first cleanse, I'm going to tell you, this is probably the oldest cleanse ever, and yet it's probably one of the most amazing cleanses that I've seen. And I really should use it a lot more. I've gotten kind of lazy in some things that I do, because there's ways that now we find ways that we can get things cleansed out a lot faster in some ways, but probably not as thorough as what this cleanse does. And so I put this one because it's one of the most, it's the one that discipline is a big factor. Okay, it is one that basically you have to take, and you've got to be willing to overcome maybe some taste issues or some texture issues, if you will, which with some of these other things that's true as well too. But when we work with this daily colon cleanse that I've got up here, this daily colon cleanse was set and put together, and it was put together by Stephen Horn at Nature Sunshine. It was put together by some of the leaders there, backed up by Dr. Jensen, which is basically, this is basically some of the things he did. Not necessarily did they work together, but I love it. So the ingredients that we're going to work with is, one, we're going to do Nature Sunshine's Nature's 3 combination. This Nature's 3 is amazing. When we work with this Nature's 3, it has an apple pectin, it has some psyllium in it. It really doesn't taste that bad. I have one client, as far as his cholesterol, this guy is amazing. He's an old sheriff, well, I actually should say a deputy in Jackson. And this guy's cholesterol was off the charts. And he would just take and grab a tablespoon and shove a tablespoon of this Nature's 3 in his mouth morning and night. And you know what? He had a cholesterol, when he came in and started working with me, his cholesterol was right around 300 at the time, which obviously is pretty dang high and scary. And we started him on that Nature's 3, and when he started on that Nature's 3, instead of him mixing it up and doing it what the suggestion was as far as the ingredients on it, he just went in there, grabbed him a tablespoon morning and a tablespoon evening and shoved it down. And his cholesterol within that year was down to normal within a year, okay, of him just doing that. And he wasn't doing anything else, which I'll tell you, there was definitely other things that need to be done, but just to show you with this Nature's 3, and it does amazing. So we're going to use the Nature's 3, a teaspoon, and I'm going to tell you, I call it a heaping teaspoon. You want to really kind of lean on the larger side of that, okay, because this is your fiber source. The other thing is we're going to work with the liquid chlorophyll. We're going to use that liquid chlorophyll to go in. Liquid chlorophyll is amazing in the fact that it is probably one of the very best things to build the blood. It's obviously one that neutralizes. Anytime we can pull acid out and get things more into an alkaline neutral environment, we're going to be healthier and do better. It is one of the best things for immune. Again, I may have said that earlier, but we're going to do the chlorophyll. We're going to put that with the Nature's 3, and then we're going to set a tablespoon in that, and then we're going to do the 2 tablespoons of whole leaf aloe vera. Aloe vera will work, but whole leaf, and when we have that whole leaf in there, it's amazing how much even more effective it is if we do the whole leaf versus just doing the regular. And then the last one, outside the apple juice that you have here, is what we call hydrated bentonite, okay? This hydrated bentonite, if anybody knows what this is, when I was first introduced to this, it kind of blew my mind, the fact that we'd ever put that in our body. I remember as a kid, and before the water would ever come in spring, we would go in, and because we had all these squirrel holes that were in our ditches and so forth, I remember going in as a kid before the water came in and taking all this bentonite, and we'd pack those squirrel holes so that as soon as the water come in and it hit the bentonite would expand and it would plug those squirrel holes, and then our ditches didn't leak. And I thought, what the heck are we doing to put that in our body? Why would we even do that? Well, first of all, bentonite is probably one of the very, very best things that you can find to go in and absorb heavy metal chemical toxicity, if you will, okay? And it does extremely well when we put that with the Nature's 3, when we put that with your aloe vera and chlorophyll to help us absorb all the heavy metals. We hear a leaky gut syndrome. Guess what, guys? This is going to take and make a huge difference. So it's going to help us absorb definitely the heavy metals, the chemicals. A lot of people run the sediment test and find out that with that sediment test that the metal toxicities and poisons are right off the chart, and I promise you this will do a very, very good job to help with that. Now you take all that, and I will tell you there's a little bit, it's not bad. I like it because it tastes like a little bit of apple mint, and then with a little bit of sour at the end because it's got the bentonite. Your tongue kind of sticks to the top of your mouth by the time you get through drinking this. But all fun aside, You're going to mix that up in 8 ounces of apple juice. Apple juice is amazing. It's one of the best ones to help take and flush the bowel. It's one of the best ones in many areas, like the gallbladder even, as you will, to go in and flush some of the toxins out of there. So you mix that up in apple juice. And I will tell you, not citrus. You don't want to do anything citrus because it doesn't have the same effect. We want to do the apple juice. If you put this with orange juice, we can actually cause a lot more irritation to the colon. And I spent a little bit of time on this one tonight, this daily cleanse, because it's that important. And I'm just sitting there thinking that, you know, I need to go back and do something like this because this stuff is amazing. But you put that in the apple juice and you drink that. Now, I'm going to tell you, based on the person and the toxicity levels and the different weaknesses that people have, this is something that should be done twice a day. Okay, it should be done morning and evening. We don't have that on here, but I'm going to tell you that it's something that, in my opinion, if you're going to really do what it is that you need to, you should be doing this morning and evening, 7 days a week for 3 months straight. And of course, we need to be taking and drinking at least that old 7th grade health that we were taught, that's 64 ounces of water. Okay, throughout the day at least. Now I got a couple other things that I put down here at the bottom too. It says we may need to add some cascara to it. Lots of times if we get, some people have the loss of peristalsis, and sometimes we need a little bit of support to increase that effort to move stuff through the bowel and help with that evacuation, and cascara does great. The other thing that I should have put in here that maybe you're going to want to write in, cascara will help. It works as a mild laxative. It's one that's going to keep all that fiber and everything moving through there, especially when all that toxin's being absorbed through there. It's going to keep this going. Some people, it's like when I did it, I never needed the cascara. Okay, I was always able to do fine with it. But I have several clients that need the cascara. They need that extra support. Now, the next thing is right to the side, additional ginger or sage if you deal with a lot of gastritis, a lot of the bloating, if you will, or cramping. Ginger and sage, or sage, either one, are one of the very, very best things that you can do with what we're doing here to eliminate that gripping in the bowel, to eliminate that cramping in the bowel as we go into detox. And when you do a really good bowel detox, guess what, you guys? You're going to have some gripping and cramping. It's what we call a healing crisis. We don't necessarily feel good, but it's amazing. I've had so many clients over 30 years come in and say, where in the world did all of that stuff come from? And it really is. You never think that your bowel could hold on to that much junk. And it's amazing. When you're going to do a decent colon cleanse, what happens with that in elimination. Okay? So, back to the ginger. The one other thing I'm going to tell you with the bowel, and this is going to go with everything we do here tonight. Whenever you're dealing with the bowel, the one thing that you need to know, it is very difficult, even your colon therapist will tell you, it is very, very difficult for and this sounds crazy, but it's very, very difficult for a solid to bypass a gas. So if you have a gas pocket in the bowel, I know that we like hearing about this, but if you have a gas pocket in the bowel and we have all this matter that's trying to get through, this gas will not allow that feces to actually pass through, the stool to actually pass through unless it's dispersed. So the best thing in the world is to disperse that is ginger. I have some people that struggle with ginger and we replace it with sage. Sage can do really well as well too in many areas. Ginger is my favorite and probably the one that is used the very most. But ginger will help with that gripping, and sometimes that's what that gripping is the gas pocket in the way, not allowing things to move through. So I never do, if I'm taking ginger, and as far as the amount, I mean, if you're doing a couple cascara a day, I do nothing less than 3 ginger at a time. It's like, you know what, you're not doing yourself a favor to do any less than that. But I will tell you this: if you really struggle with things as far as gas, the bloatiness, stuff like that, and you're going to have some of that as we go through the colon cleanse, you're going to have some of that anyway, just because we're going in, expanding the bowel, we're breaking all this gunk off the walls, and we're taking and moving it through the body. If you have tendencies towards a lot of that gripping or that cramping, there's one thing you can always do, and it will prevent that and do amazing, is you can take that ginger 2 per hour as needed to get rid of that cramping. So if you ever run in a situation that you're just really struggling with the cramping as you go through this bowel, there is a way to get through it without having a lot of that discomfort, and that's just taking a couple of ginger per hour as you need. Sometimes you only need to do that twice. Sometimes you can get away with it just once. And that is over and above what you might be taking on a daily basis. If I was to do this, I didn't need, like I said, I didn't need to do the cascarate, but I always took the ginger because it made all the difference in the world. When I did colon therapy, my colon therapy was always more successful if I was using ginger. Okay, so anyway, that is probably one of the most deepest cleanses, one of the most successful cleanses that you can use to thoroughly go in to cleanse the colon. But not only that, but when you're working with your liquid chlorophyll, it's going to start restoring and toning the walls of the large and the small intestine. It's going to help us as far as repairing at this time, cleansing the bowel wall and repairing the bowel to where that peristalsis or that vibration, that bowel can start kicking back in and moving. Many times when we deal with like diverticulitis or colitis, if you will, or any of those balloonings that you might get in this bowel that you hear with diverticulitis or colitis, guess what, guys? Most of those areas began with, in the first place, some congestion that showed up in that area that kind of attached itself to the wall. But over time, it actually, because it attached that wall because of loss of peristalsis in the first place. And when we don't have that vibration there, it's really easy just to take and create a bowel pocket, or if you will, or a weakened area in that bowel to where all these toxins and poisons can take and collect. And sometimes we call them bowel pockets. We call it a ballooning of the bowel. When you look at diverticulitis, you look at colitis, look that up because it's pretty interesting what it is. Colitis, ulcerative colitis, there's just a lot of challenge to go with that. So anyway, would I use this with ulcerative colitis? I would. I've used it. It works amazing. I've helped a lot of people that way. This is a great one. Am I prescribing? No, but even in severe cases like that, when I got people that have been very sick, it doesn't matter what it is. Guess what, guys? If we don't have elimination systems opened up, it doesn't matter what you do anywhere else. Things are not going to work the way they're supposed to. So we've got to get the elimination systems going. Now, I'm going to tell you this before we move on to the last part. And a lot of this stuff I throw in there just because it's things that I've learned over the years. But Dr. Jensen, which you will hear with many other people that is in nutrition, that are well, anyway, when I say mentors as far as nutrition, they will tell you that here's the deal. If you eat a meal, say I eat a meal right now, 24 hours from now or less, I should have an elimination of that meal. So, asking you, if you were to eat 3 meals a day, how many eliminations should you have tomorrow? And if you're not having that, the question is, what are you going to do to fix that? Okay? Now, that's the ideal situation. I know that doesn't always happen. Do I have clients that are that way? Absolutely. But if you're not at least having 1 to 3 eliminations a day, okay, you're definitely in trouble. Okay? Definitely in trouble. And I've heard, and I shouldn't say this, but I've heard some people come in and say, well, my doctor, I have an elimination once a week. I have an elimination. I had one client come in that had been so dang sick and they couldn't figure out what was going on with her. And when I looked in her eyes, her bowels were just horrible. They were horrible. I mean, it was scary. Spasticity, the pockets, the congestion, stuff like that. And you know, it's interesting, and as I brought this up and I said, hey, you know what, it looks like that we've got some pretty bad problems here. And it's like, if we don't get this bowel to clean up a little bit, there's no way we're going to get anything else in the body to actually do what it's supposed to do. And I asked her, bowel movement wise, how she did as far as elimination. She says, well, she says, in my mind it's been a problem. And I'm like, okay. She said, but I talked to my doctor and he says, some people's bodies are just that way. And I'm like, okay, so how many eliminations do you have? She says, 1, maybe 2 a month. And I thought, how in the world has her body lasted as long as she has gone? In fact, I didn't even believe it, because I thought there's no way that could be the case. But in her situation, she was so bad off that that's what was going on. So keep in mind, for every meal that you eat, 24 hours later or less, you should have an elimination for that. So ask yourself that. If you're not having that happen, to where you're at least having 1 to 3 eliminations, good eliminations a day, not just a elimination, good elimination a day, then it'd probably be wise to go and do a colon cleanse. Dr. Jensen always said, along with Dr. Clausen, with Stephen Horn, with all the people that I have worked with as mentorship, they will tell you that that it's ridiculous to do anything less than 2 colon cleanses a year. You should at least be doing biannual colon cleanses. In the spring, we always spring clean. That's a great time for a colon cleanse, okay? But yeah, for every year, we should at least have 2 good 90-day colon cleanses, okay? Just to give you a heads up. So ask yourself some questions, see where you're at with that. Okay, let's go into this mini bowel cleanse. This is one of the ones that I use the very most in my practice. And I will tell you that I've gotten kind of lazy and I've gotten kind of dependent a little bit on this Clean Start because it does amazing. It really does. When I say dependent on it, I mean not just myself, but with my clients, okay? It's something that Nature Sunshine has put together. This Clean Start is amazing, okay? Now, they have a mild Clean Start. I will tell you, and of course people might tell you differently, there's a mild Clean Start. Honestly, I've not had the success with that. I've not had the results that I have with the regular Clean Start. I will tell you that the results we've had has been with the wild berry Clean Start as being the most effective. And I will tell you that I've got some people with the apple, they just can't keep it down. I was one of those. And so we always do wild berry. Now I know there's some people who will do the apple and be great with it, but we always do the wild berry Clean Start with me and with my clients. But this Clean Start is so convenient because basically what you're doing is you do a drink in the morning. You need to take that drink and do it on an empty stomach so it can go in there. And first thing with that drink, it has that psyllium. It has those things that we need to for that expansion of that bowel to start absorbing, to start breaking things down and cleansing the bowel wall. So that drink needs to be taken on an empty stomach so that we're not dealing with all kinds of other foods, if you will, that might stop that from doing what it needs to do. So you want to take that drink first thing in the morning. You can drink all you want for the next hour, but you cannot eat anything for the next hour. After an hour, after you've taken the drink that goes with the Clean Start, then you can go ahead and eat your meal or take your supplements. There's another little packet in there that has 2 Enviro Detox and 1 LBS2. Okay, that's what you're also going to take, which is the second part of that Clean Start. And with the Clean Start, we do it morning and we do it evening, okay? Just remember to take it on an empty stomach. Wait an hour before you eat or take any of the other supplements in that packet that goes with the Clean Start. That needs to be an hour out of the drink. Now, in that hour's time, you can drink all you want. We just can't eat anything, okay? The reason is because we don't want to absorb all that stuff in the drink. I mean, when you go and do the drink and do the psyllium, you do the... And don't let the psyllium scare you off because we're doing the right psyllium and what we're doing. Some people's like, oh my gosh, psyllium's terrible. It's like the seeds are the ones that drop into the pockets that fester and cause issues. It's not what we're doing with the holes here. I mean, they're going to do amazing. So it works well. But just make sure that you're drinking in that hour and you're drinking throughout the course of the day. And again, twice a day is what we want to do. I have some people that they're so bad off and they struggle so much they only do it 1 time a day. That's fine. Okay, this is for a quick cleanse to the bowel, or just something to give the bowel a little bit of help to get things rolling and help it remind what it needs to do and break maybe a little bit of congestion up or something like that might be causing some issues. Now you're going to see later on, we're going to talk about a TIA cleanse as we go further here. But what I do want to tell you is something that it is probably, like I say, I've gotten kind of lazy. I don't even want to say lazy, but a little bit dependent on this because I have had excellent results, absolutely excellent results with this with the clients over the years. Okay, I will tell you here again, ginger can be used too. I always tell everybody that I found that if you take the Clean Start, and with that Clean Start for every drink that you do in the morning, and with that little packet of herbs that you do in the morning, and the drink you do in the evening, that little packet of herbs you do in the evening, I always take 3 ginger. Why? Because that's the one thing that's going to disperse the gas. That's one thing that's going to help me prevent any cramping in the bowel. I always suggest that to my clients. We muscle test it, and we find that it works great. If we put that would be the only thing that I would say outside of increasing your water, that if Nature Sunshine was to make this Clean Start a little more effective, you could put the ginger with it, okay? But as it is, you can still put the ginger with it, just on the side note there. Okay, so it's a mild bowel cleanse. This one is something that's really handy. The cleanse is actually a 2-week cleanse per box. But I will tell you, that will get things started. That will get things rolling. That will help the person kind of get back on their feet a little bit. Sometimes it's even something we can use to prep the body to get to get the body ready for actually going in and doing this cleanse with our Nature's 3 and so forth too. Okay, so anyway, a clean start is amazing, and it's something that I see cholesterol change. I see great cholesterol changes go on with people in a big way, because of the fiber that's in there. It does so well to help with even the cholesterol factors as well too. I told you about the one gentleman that out of Jackson that was a sheriff deputy there, that, I mean, his cholesterol, it does have like that Nature's 3 in it when we're working with this clean start, and that's part of the psyllium there, if you will. Okay, so anyway, clean start's amazing. And again, water is absolutely amazing. Okay, now let's talk about this. This is something that, this next one, we talked about a temporary bowel regularity. If somebody was to get in a situation, and there's a lot of people, I tell everybody, it's like, listen, if your bowel's not eliminating, one of the things that you can do right from the beginning until you can get yourself to where you can start doing a clean start, or start doing the, the Nature's 3 liquid aloe vera chlorophyll cleanse, is just to help with evacuation, like in states of constipation. This would be a great one, okay? Because in constipation, this is going to go in and stimulate peristalsis. This is going to go in and start moving the bowel and helping with proper elimination. It's going to go in and get the process started. Many times it will go in, and if you're dealing with a lot of discomfort, if you're dealing with a lot of congestion, weaknesses that way, or just struggling as a whole with your bowels, or you can do this combination right here with the slippery elm, ginger, and cascara and be very, very successful. Now, the thing is this. It works great as a temporary, and you can do it for a while, but this is not a bowel cleanse. Okay, this is something to actually just keep the elimination going. Okay, this is something that's a temporary fix. Okay, but it's something that's not going to go in and detox and cleanse that bowel. It's just something to keep the bowel moving. So don't hesitate to use the slippery elm, cascara, and ginger. Those three in combination. They do absolute. I mean, I've got some people that will do like slippery elm and ginger and LBS2, or slippery elm, ginger, LBX, and they're great. They work great as well too. But I will tell you, I find better results as a whole with people that do that slippery elm, ginger, and the cascara combination. And I will always tell you, no matter what, and I just want to make a note on this and we'll move on, I always use a 2-to-1, and I was taught a 2-to-1 ratio of slippery elm to cascara. So for every cascara you're taking, you should take at least 2 slippery elm. Never anything less, okay? Now the ginger, you can work that as needed. Remember, you can do 2 per hour if you got that gripping or cramping. I have down there to do 2 morning, 1 evening. That is on the very, I mean, we're being very conservative with that. You can add a lot more to it as you need to. Just keep in mind that that 2-to-1 ratio is absolutely the best way to work with that slippery elm and cascara. So, meaning that you should at least take 2 slippery elm in the morning with 1 cascara, and 2 slippery elm in the evening with one cascara, just to keep that regularity, to keep things moving. But the one thing is, we don't want to create a dependency. That's just prepping us to where we can actually go in and start detoxing the bowel, get the peristalsis back, and get things eliminated the way they should be. All right, the next part here, I think, what do we have here? We got it off a little bit, don't we? Okay, no. We got the bowel liver detox on your paper. It's just a little bit off as how far as how it printed here. Sorry, you guys. But at the bottom it says bowel liver detox. Okay, let's talk about that, because this next part, as you turn your page, it says 1 box of Clean Start, followed by 1 box of Tiaohe. And then we do this in 3 times with each of those. So meaning that we got this is amazing, because here's the deal. I will tell you that I've got so many people that come in my office that it's like they've taken a life insurance test and they've failed because their liver, the enzymes are off, or whatever the case might be, their cholesterol, the triglycerides are out, and they're like, gosh, if I can just go and do a liver cleanse, then maybe I can try a different insurance company and get insurance. And I will tell you, this combination is like amazing. But I also will tell you too that as far as liver, keep this in mind. The liver dumps to the bowel. So you never ever, and the biggest mistake that I see with people over the years, in 30 years, that I watch people almost in their mind kill themselves seriously because it is so bad on them, is they go in and they try to do a liver cleanse, and their bowels are already a mess. And when all that stuff from the liver, all those toxins and poisons and all that stuff dumps from the liver into the bowel, and the bowel's not prepped to handle that, we have a very, very sick person. I've watched people to where their skin, it's amazing. I mean, to where their skin absolutely, it looks like John totally turned yellow. I mean, they're so dark under the eyes. It's just like they are sick. I mean, it's just nausea. Anyway, you always want to make sure, if you're ever going to do a liver cleanse, you want to make sure that the bowel is prepped for that. Other words, you'll do like these people that go in and make that mistake with the life insurance, and they go in and detox the liver, and it hits the bowel's not prepared for it, and now they just caused a second problem. Okay, so the way this is set up is this. You do one clean start, which is a 2-week program, doing it morning and evening. You follow it. So the clean start's going to work with the bowel. Okay, the next one you do what's called a tiauhe. Tiauhe is going to work with the liver, the gallbladder, and it's going to support the bowel, but it's more designed to work with the liver, the gallbladder, the detoxification and cleansing and purifying of the blood. Okay, so it is one that actually is going to start normalizing liver functions. It's going to help with the enzyme factors. It's going to help with the cholesterol, triglyceride. Okay, so you do the clean start, the tiauhe. Clean start, tiauhe. Clean start, tiauhe. By the time you go through those 3, I've got people that if you want to see something awesome, I've watched their labs go from absolutely crazy as far as their different labs, as far as their blood count and different things like that, to where by the time they get to the end of that and when they go in and do another blood draw, those things that they're struggling with are in range. Those things are doing better. Not only that, they feel amazing. Their energy is doing great. They're that person that they used to be. Okay, and it's because we've got those 2 out of the 5 elimination systems opened up. But when we talk about elimination system, we talk about liver. Here's the thing. Liver is an elimination system, but guess what? If you don't have the bowel, that part of that elimination system or that elimination system opened up, then you cannot effectively get the liver as elimination to open up and do what it is supposed to do. Okay? So here we go. So that's a great one. That's something that, I mean, it's like, you know where you're at, you know who you're working with, you know some of the problems you have, you know if your cholesterol, triglycerides, you know that if your gallbladder is struggling, you know if you have gallbladder attacks, you know. And so look at these different cleanses so you can decide which of those are going to be the best for you as far as the bowel. And again, water like you're going out of style. If you want it like it's going out of style, if you want to put a little bit of lemon with it, if you want it, and not the real lemon, you can do like the lemon essential oil, or you can actually cut the lemon and squeeze it. You can do that, or you can do the lime or the lime essential oil to take and flavor it and help it a little bit. That's great. In order to do that and get watered down, those will work great as well too. Okay, now let's just talk about a few conditions. And again, I need to make it a special point that I am not saying this will heal atonic colon. This will heal a spastic colon. This will heal colitis. I'm not going to make those claims, but I am going to tell you that we've had some amazing results, and I mean in a lot of ways. Okay, so when you work with the atonic means that basically the bowel has lost the tone. Number one, I mean it's sloppy, if you will. It's called a sloppy bowel. It doesn't have the there's no tone to it. It's just like the difference between somebody that works out and somebody that doesn't work out. What happens is those muscles are just not strong, they're not healthy, they're not toned. And in addition to that, we also don't have that peristaltic activity, that vibration of the bowel that keeps things moving. There's a lot of dead spots in the bowel. And it's crazy because you can have dead spot in the bowel, peristalsis, dead spot in the bowel, peristalsis, dead. And eventually those dead spots are all going to turn into those bloomings of the bowel pockets, or what medically is referred to as colitis or diverticulitis. Because when there are dead spots in there and nothing's moving that through there, then it's going to build up, and eventually it's going to create this problem. So atonic, cascara, obviously one of the best ones to get things rolling. Cascara is a great one to go and start the peristalsis. It's a great one to go in and start bringing a little bit of the tone back to the bowel. But with cascara, the other things that I have written down here, and we're going to talk about one at the end that I don't even use for several reasons, but it's an option for some people. With cascara, I find you could even use like LBX, the LBS2, There's a psyllium hull combination. If you do the psyllium hull combination, I would suggest that you take, it's like the Nature's 3, it's in a powder. If you do that psyllium hull combination, or actually there's a single herb capsulated psyllium hulls that you could take and do, that I don't have written down there. But if you do the psyllium, you're going to want to put the cascara with it. The LBS2, the LBX, and the LB extract, they're all ones that we'll actually take, and they work. The LB stands for, is an acronym for lower bowel. Lower bowel support, lower bowel, as far as lower bowel health, okay? Talking about lower bowel, large intestine. You know, just on a side note for craziness, I remember when I was doing my Nat and Phys class, my first one, I remember they talked about the strength of this colon. This is so weird. I don't even know why this ever come up, and I remember just it being funny. But they had talked about how strong is this colon. And there was a remark that was made by a college professor that says it is strong enough to take and hook on the bumper of your car and pull another car around with it. That colon is that strong. So here we go, and I'm not saying this is the right thing, anyway, long story short, these kids had actually taken a colon of an animal, which I'm not going to go in there, and it's like I'm not saying this is the right thing, but they hooked it on from one bumper to the next to see if there was really truth to that. And guess what? That colon was that strong to where they could pull that vehicle.
Did they give the colon back?
Yeah, there you go. Okay, ridiculous. It's like I'm not saying do that. Don't do that. But just to show you the strength of this colon. But the problem is if it's sloppy to where we don't have any tone to that bowel, then we're going to start creating a lot of problems right off as far as some of the major diseases that you can have in that colon. And when we lose that peristalsis, it isn't long before we start taking and losing that the actual tone of that bowel too. So with that, one other thing. With the LB extract, that's a tincture. You can also, just like with the little guys, you can rub that topically on their stomach, and it works amazing. It really does. If you'll take and just put a little bit right around the navel and then just run it, so the navel being here, if you'll just take and massage, again, clockwise, it will take and go in, it'll absorb within that, into that little individual's body, and it'll go right to this colon, and it will actually start the activities what's needed to move the bowel. But if you massage in there too, it's also going to help stimulate that peristalsis and get things moving a little bit faster. And these little guys that struggle with constipation, struggle with some challenges that way, these babies, different things like that, it's one that you don't even have to do internally. You can actually take and do it topically. I suggest doing it internally and topically, because if you do it internally and then you do a little bit topically, it is a targeting mechanism for what you're doing as far as internally. Okay, so when you take it and then you rub it on here, that's the area that it's going to work or move towards to take and get the best response there. Okay, so LBE works great with the little guys, but guess what? It can work just as great with adults. Okay, a lot of results as far as LB extract over the years. Okay, I'm going to go to the last one there, and I got a caution on there. I've got Senna combination. There's a lot of people that use Senna. That's, if you're okay with Senna, you feel good with Senna, hats off to you. I will tell you that in 30 years, out of the bowel problems that I've worked with as far as nutrition, Senna has caused more gripping and more cramping. Not saying it doesn't work, but it can be very, very painful. Okay, and so know that if you're taking that Senna combination, prepare yourself, because you may be one of the ones that ends up with a lot of that gripping of the bowel, that cramping of the bowel. And there's nothing worse than being buckled up and being in the fetal position trying to deal with those darn bowel cramps, and it can get that bad. When I say that, I have numerous clients that's exactly what they talked about, laying in bed and just having those pains. And so we don't want that. If you were to take that Senna, I would definitely suggest that you do Junior with it. Okay, that way it'll help prevent that cramping and gripping, and you'll get a better response or less of that gripping or cramping. There's also another one that you can put with it as well too, or I will tell you, I've got some people which, besides Sage, there's another one you can use. It's called Cramp Relief. Okay, Cramp Relief is amazing. It's a combination put out by Nature's Sunshine. Initially, when I started working with it, I used it with a lot of ladies for the menstrual cramping and the challenges that they had as far as menstruation factors. And later on, learning more information through Stephen Horn and the properties of this Cramp Relief, Oh my gosh, it works excellent for muscle cramps, for Charlie horses. Cramp relief is off the chart for that. And it's also, of course, excellent for the cramping, the gripping of the bowel as well, too. So cramp relief, you can write that in there as a good one as well. Okay? Let's go to the spastic bowel. What does spastic mean? When I see a spastic bowel, and what I've worked with spastic bowel, this is just a nice, pretty bowel. Sometimes you can have what we call pretty bowel, huh? You can have different things within the bowel, which is interesting because, and I should bring it in, I should show you, but you can look it up. You can have what we call a prolapse, where you have this transverse colon that drops clear down here, and it sits right on top of the bladder and right on top of the rectal region. And guess what? Lots of moms that have babies have some of those issues. Okay, lots of people that just have a heavy toxic bowel has a lot of those issues with prolapses. Did we lose the toning? Yes. But also we can have what we call spasticity, meaning that it's just that way. We have spasms of that bowel. Now, if it's in the small intestine, that's what we refer to as more of a Crohn's disorder. But guess what? With the Crohn's disorder, I'm going to tell you this. Basically, you guys, when we have the spasticity of the bowel, if the small intestine is actually spasming and causing any problems, then more than likely, so is the large intestine, because it's one of the same. Even though you got one digestion, one elimination, they're still working both elimination. And so with that, I mean, when we have that spastic bowel, I've seen bowels that are, gosh, when you look in the eyes, it's just, I mean, they are bloomed, they are strictured, they are impacted, they are, I mean, it's just crazy because of spasticity. So when you look at people that have different things like the colitis or diverticulitis or celiac or different things like that, there can be a spasticity problem that goes with it as well too. Now, some of the best things that will take and work with that, now I'm going to tell you, be careful with a couple of these because they do have a hormone base to them, especially the ladies, and that's the black cohosh, the blue cohosh. Hops, okay, not in the alcohol form, but the actual herb form. Hops does great. Lobelia does great. You'll notice as I go through this, passion flower does great. They're one of the ones that are actually more the calmers. They're the ones that are going to settle. They're going to reduce the spasm. So they're going to help in that area. And psyllium does, and I don't know that I put that as my favorite one in there, but it does. Valerian's another one. When we have people that, if you've ever smelled valerian, it's like, oh my gosh, you open the bottle or you whatever, it's just like, whoa. But I will tell you, it does a great job to just calm, to relax, to build. Okay. As far as an herbal, and those are single herbs. Okay. As far as an herbal combination, what I have or formula down here, cramp relief. There it is. Okay. Works amazing. I'm finding more and more that I put that in with a lot of my colon cleanses and different things like that because we have such a better result. Okay. Intestinal soothing build. This intestinal soothing build is amazing. We're going to talk about that now, and we're going to talk about that when we go to the next part as far as the IBD or the IBS and so forth. Intestinal soothing build. It's one that used to be what we call UC3J prior to making it intestinal soothing build with Nature Sunshine. I have watched miracles with this intestinal soothing build. I watched people with extreme ulcerative colitis. I mean, to where the bleeding was so bad rectally that they wanted to take and obviously get rid of the bowel because of the problems it was having, and the individual that had the issue knew in his mind that he could get that fixed, and he knew he couldn't live without. He needed to get that fixed, and he needed to do something to repair it. And it's like no way was he going to take and have that cut out and hooked up to a bag or what have you. And we don't need to go into that. But anyway, I worked with him. He come to see me, and I started working with him. And of course, he would bleed so bad that it was crazy. In the fact that the amount of transfusions that he had between the time that we got started and the time that we got his bowel healed and doing great to where he no longer has problems and does extremely well. I was just shocked, and I even had thoughts of, is this really going to work? And as we work with that intestinal soothing build, I will tell you, it does that. It not only, I mean, it's just amazing to go and heal that bowel. I mean, yes, it soothes, it calms down, it relaxes. With colitis, with the pain, the discomfort, when you have the spasticity of the bowel, when you have the inflammation of the bowel, this intestinal soothing build does amazing. So not only is it going to soothe it, It's going to build it. It's going to go in and get the toning back. It's going to prep everything to where we can get the peristalsis back and things back in order. If we're building and toning it, even in this case of, it's interesting, even in the cases of ulceration. So one thing, there's colitis and then there's ulcerated colitis, okay? Which means that we have ulcers, big old festered, infected ulcers that sit in that bowel. And with that, a lot of the bleeding that goes with it. And this individual had probably one of the worst cases ever. Every doctor he went to, they just wanted to go in and just cut it out, because they said there's no way that it will ever take and repair itself, and you're just going to end up having problems forever and ever and ever. And he knew that he needed to do something to save that, and he did, and was very, very successful. So it's been fun because I worked with him starting out, and that was the big problem that he had at the time, and that was 28 years ago. And you know what? I see him, I still work with his family, I still work with him occasionally. It's like, we don't even have to worry about that anymore, you guys. That's awesome. That's what we call something that's not a temporary fix, but that's what we call long term. And that's what we're here to do, is to fix things, to repair it, okay, to get things back in order to where they function correctly on their own, not necessarily functioning as we take and support it consistently all the time. We want to get your body back to where it can start taking care of its own. God designed a body to do that. We just need to take care of it in a way so that it can do that, and that's what we want to accomplish here. Okay, with this colitis, and if you go down, the inflammatory bowel disorder, the IBD, other words, IBS, okay, I mean, all those things we're going to talk about right now. I will tell you right from the beginning, as you go through the herbs, aloe vera is one that soothes, it heals. You hear all kinds of stuff about aloe vera. It does amazing. Don't get me wrong. You notice that was in our big part of our cleanse that we worked with the Nature's 3 and the chlorophyll and so forth. Aloe vera will work and do amazing to go ahead and soothe and to help with the healing and the toning of that bowel. Okay. Along with that, marshmallow is one of my favorite too, because marshmallow is a soother. Guess what? It's not like the ones that we go and make our s'mores with, you guys. It's actually the marshmallow herb. Okay. But I use this even with like bladder infections, with urinary tract infections, with bladder disorders, with the discomfort that goes with that. But marshmallow also works absolutely phenomenal with the bowel to soothe it so that we can actually heal it and repair it. Okay, so those are my favorite. Now I will tell you a little bit about slippery elm. Slippery elm is another one of my favorite, and I use a lot of slippery elm and have throughout my life. Slippery elm, I have a good friend that he always says, anytime, well, at the beginning of the stages when we started working with him and cleansing his bowel, we use that old slippery elm, we use the ginger, and we use the cascara, or sorry, not the cascara, but the LBS2. And he would call me up and he'd say, hey, he says, I need to get more of that slippery and wet and the pounds too, okay? And Brian he just always is the goofball that way. But people look at it in a way that they think that slippery elm is the one thing that just keeps things sliding through the bowel. There's truth to that, and yet it's not to the point where they think that's going to cause. So with slippery elm puts the natural mucus lining back in the bowel, okay? It puts that good, healthy mucus lining back in the bowel, it strengthens and tones the bowel, but that mucus lining is also necessary for the cilia to help with the attachment of the probiotics, okay? So slippery elm is something, when I deal with people that have dealt with high acidity, it's gotten destroyed this friendly flora throughout the bowel, or we've got a lot of heavy mucus that sits within that bowel. Slippery elm does a really good job to put the good lining of the mucus lining in there, and it also does a good job to help us get rid of the negative, if you will, in cleansing the bowel, even the mucus. Sometimes we have parasites, that's their favorite place. We'll talk about that in a little bit here, okay? But I will tell you, out of that list, if you were to go look at those single herbs, my favorite, obviously, and I told you, is marshmallow. Circle marshmallow is a great one. Slippery elm is a great one. And aloe vera does a good job. Yes, chamomile does a great job to calm. We do have psyllium down here. Yeah, psyllium's okay, but it's not what I would call it's not what I'd call a soother or a healer as far as that bowel is concerned, okay? The combinations, there's an actual combination that's called CLTX that Nature's Sunshine's put together. Obviously the CLTX is an acronym for colitis. Not prescribing, not saying that's exactly, just keep that in mind, that's just kind of give you a reference as far as the things that it's capable of working with, okay? CLTX works amazing. Gastro health, phenomenal. Gastro Health is the one that is awesome in a way that anybody that has ever had H. pylori virus, this Gastro Health was designed to go get rid of that virus so that we can actually get the healing back to the walls of the stomach, intestinal, colon. So Gastro Health is amazing, and I don't use that as much as I should. I forget about that, and it's one that we should use a lot more of. Okay, and then we're going to go into the things that are actually reducing inflammation, because it's very hard to repair or strengthen anything in a state of inflammation. So we want to get the inflammation down, the negative or the bad inflammation down, get some good inflammation up, and get some things happening that way. That's where your IF relief, your IFC comes in. They do amazing. I will tell you, yucca can work with that as well too. I don't have that down, but yucca does really well. Okay, those are the ones that are more the anti-inflammatories. Okay, they're the ones that are going to work with the inflammation. Notice there's one that says small intestinal detox. I will tell you that combination is one of my absolute favorite. I don't mean to judge, but a lot of my clients know for a fact that it's like I'm kind of upset that they named it small intestinal detox, because that's not what I would say it does. I use that to even repair with people that have hiatal hernias, the esophageal stress, the hiatal hernia, the abdominal stress goes with it, the stomach stress goes with it. That small intestinal detox is phenomenal to help out with that. What small intestinal detox is to go in and help as far as, well, let me tell you this way. It's consisting of pepsin and marshmallow. Marshmallow is the soother. Pepsin is the one that's going to go in and help with the digestion, stimulation, absorption. Marshmallow heals as we increase the digestion. But with that works. Small intestinal detox is one of the best ones to go in and heal from the stomach to the esophagus to the small intestine. Okay? My wife's laughing about me over here. So anyway, that's what happens when you deal with we're dealing with anyway, we won't go there. Again, that intestinal soothing build, all right, does phenomenal. Again, that's one of the best ones in just about every bowel condition. Intestinal soothing build works amazing. There's another one that's called PLS2. By design, I use PLS2 a lot just to go in and help people that have torn muscles, pulls, strains, different things like that. Initially, the acronym stands for pulls and strains. That was what it was put together for. But guess what? If it works for those muscles as far as the striated, guess what it does for the bowel? It also works with that smooth muscle of the bowel to go in and help with the healing, to get the actual bowel to heal and start doing what it's supposed to do. So PLS2 works great for that intestinal colon region, and especially in a state of inflammation, a state of weakness or irritation or hypersensitivity. PLS2 does great that way. Gentle Move. Let me tell you a little bit about Gentle Move, and then I'm also going to throw a mineral in here too. Gentle Move by nature is one that is more of a stool softener, if you will. Does that by way, yes, it has magnesium. Magnesium is the other herb that I was going to, mineral that I was going to tell you about that works with the bowel. And the reason magnesium does so well is because it helps to not only work with the nerves, but it helps to actually get the hydration to the bowel. Many times the constipation issues that we're dealing with, which, when we look at those cleanses like with the Clean Start, and when I told you about the big cleanse with the Nature's 3 and colon, or Nature's 3, the aloe vera, liquid chlorophyll, so forth. People that deal with chronic constipation and stuff like that, man, those are the ones to go in and start working with and to get things rolling here. But I will tell you that Gentle Move or magnesium is one of the best things to get hydration to the bowel. It's the one thing that will help us to get that water you're drinking, some of that to the bowel to help with elimination, like in Crohn's and stuff like that. It helps with those nerves that are overstimulated that's causing the irritation to the bowel as well too. Magnesium carries so many properties that we had no clue that they were capable of. So magnesium is great. Stress J. Anytime that we deal with things like celiac, Crohn's, anything that has that spastic bowel or that inflammation to where there's a lot of pain and discomfort to the bowel, Stress J by design is a combination that works with the nervous system to calm, to relax, to help people deal with stress. It's to help with anxiety and things of that nature. But you know what? When I work with things that have inflammation of the bowel, Stress J is one of the best things to go in and work with the nerves, the calming and the healing of that bowel as well too. So when you have that excessive irritation to the bowel, Stress J is one of the best ones to take and use and help out with that. Okay, bowel detox. It used to be called bowel build. They changed it to bowel detox. It does both. Okay, it does have a little bit of charcoal in there as well too. Besides, and it works great. I watched some amazing things happen with bowel detox or bowel build over the years. And just as a generality or something to kind of get things rolling or something to maybe finish off as far as the building of the colon-intestinal region, that bowel detox works phenomenal. Like I say, it used to be called bowel build. In my mind, it does far more in the building part of it, but it does have the detox like with the chlorophyll, or not the chlorophyll, but the charcoal as well too. Okay. All right, just a little bit as far as the probiotics here. The one thing that I do want to talk about, probiotics are absolutely a must, but it's very, very hard to go in and get those probiotics into that bowel to help with the immune and help with the health of the bowel. If we're dealing with a whole bunch of congestion, if we're dealing with a whole bunch of toxins, the availability of those probiotics to take and help us out the way they're supposed to is not there. Okay, so sometimes it's better to do the probiotic after the cleanse and build it up and do it that way instead of taking it and just flushing it out of your body. We have a list there as far as probiotic support. I mean, I will tell you there's times that I do during the bowel cleanse because of some of the immune factors, different things are going around, we'll use a probiotic with it. But most of the time I find that we do the probiotic more after we've done the cleansing and we get the bowel health built back up. Okay, probiotic 11, there's 11 billion of these nice little floras in there that will go in and help the body. Elevate 11, there's 30 billion. I mean, Nature Sunshine has done amazing as far as what they've done as far as the probiotic factors there. Okay, continuing. This is going to be some of the same stuff that we talked about. Inflammatory bowel disease. There's your celiac, there's your Crohn's, there's your leaky gut syndrome. All of those are an indication that we're dealing with inflammation. Anytime we deal with inflammation, something's wrong. Okay, when there's something wrong, when we deal with inflammation to certain areas, something is not doing or working the way it's supposed to. And that's what's causing that inflammation. Going back to some of these other things that I talked about, I will tell you that with what we're doing besides drinking water, pH is huge. When you deal with people that have a lot of over acid conditions, they run more on the acidic condition versus what goes on as far as the neutral and the alkaline environment, you're going to find that these people really struggle a lot with the inflammation of the bowel. I mean, this is one that causes a lot of the diarrhea. This is the one that causes a lot of the problems like with the Crohn's, with the celiac. The one thing is getting that pH balanced out, stabilized. See, that's one thing with the chlorophyll. It does really good when we do the nature stream, the aloe vera. But we want to make sure that we have that acid balanced out as well too and get it to do better. And sometimes I just do simple things to calm the acid down if I need to, like catnip or green zone. I mean, those two are excellent to help out with that, okay? But just going through this as far as the inflammatory bowel disease, celiac, Crohn's, colitis, the leaky gut syndrome, we can keep going. You're going to go to your single herbs. Now, I will tell you one thing too, and before we get to the next part of this, sometimes some of these issues can have a parasite problem with them. And that could be an underlying cause of a lot of the challenges that we're dealing with here. Okay, I have some people, we flush a ton of yeast and candida as we move stuff out of their body. I have a lot of people that will actually remove articles that have been swallowed out of their body. We're going to talk about that a little bit here too. Okay, but black walnut is one that does good to keep the bowel elimination going. It's another one that is excellent that we use to kill worms, parasites, and flukes. Yes, there are tapeworms. Yes, there are different parasites. There are different things like that. And so black walnut does really well. Camel milk, again, more of the calmer, but it also helps with that digestion. The horsetail is one of the best ones to build. Silica, I mean, horsetail is like, oh my gosh. I mean, when we talk about like muscular, structural, hair, skin, nails, stuff like that, this horsetail is like off the charts with the ingredients you need to help out with those areas. But guess what that does? As far as building and toning the bowel wall and helping out in that area, it does well. It does extremely well. Licorice root. Let me put a note on the side of licorice root here. You'll notice after that it says marshmallow and slippery elm, which we talked about. Licorice root does great with the bowel, but licorice root can only be utilized for short periods of time. Okay. What we found with licorice root, it does a good job to, when we're working with the bowel, to go in and keep the movement going. It does a good job to keep things flushing, keeps things more in a regular state as far as the bowel. It does pretty good also to take and help soothe a little bit of the bowel and cause, as far as irritation there. But the problem with licorice root, if you take it long enough, everything that I've been taught is you're pushing it if you go longer than 28 days. And it's better to take and do 21 days and take a break. Because what happens is that you keep taking that licorice root, and what it can do is it can start increasing your glucose or your blood sugar. So if you have blood sugar problems, you got to be extremely careful with licorice root, especially if you have the high blood sugar. Licorice root is one of the worst things you can do because it's going to increase your glucose there. Okay, so but on the norm, some people that have low blood sugar actually will do quite well with it. But on the just on a daily basis, working with the average person, yeah, you can use that. I muscle test it, check it. Just remember that after 21 days, you want to take a break for a little while. Let the body get back into doing what it's supposed to be doing on its own. Make sure that blood sugar is stabilized. Make sure that we're not causing or creating problems in that direction. Okay. All right. As far as combinations, here we go again, guys. A lot of the same repetition. Bowel detox, IF relief, IFC, intestinal soothe and build, Nature's 3, Stress J, gentle move, small intestinal detox, ultrabiome. Okay, I want to talk about this a little bit. Ultrabiome is one that just came out with Nature's Sunshine here, I don't know what, year ago? Year and a half.
It's been 2 in September.
2 in September. I will tell you that I have witnessed absolutely miracles with this ultrabiome. It can be rugged as heck. And some people, it is just the greatest thing in the world while you're working with it. But either way, I have watched amazing things. Initially, this program was set up to do 3 particular things. Okay. 1, to neutralize acids. Anytime we deal with an overacid condition, there's nothing healthy that can live and survive in that environment. So ultrabiome is one that goes in and neutralizes acid. It will do it not only digestive-wise, but through the overall body. When we're higher in acids, we have a tendency to collect a lot of the, it's amazing because you absorb in a higher acid condition. You got people that, I had a client, actually Mom had a client, that working with sheet metal all day long, working with aluminum, he was absorbing all that aluminum every day that he worked, and it got to a point that he had so much vertigo, and they didn't even know what was going on or what was causing it, but he had so much vertigo that he was, and owning his own shop, he was going to have to take and either quit because he was going to injure himself based on what was going on, the vertigo, or someone else. And Mom, working with him, one of the things they did is they worked with hydrated bentonite, and he would just do that every day before he went to work, and it would absorb all that aluminum that he was taking in on a daily basis because his acids was so high, but it would prevent, of course, the vertigo just because it was absorbing that. Now, obviously, they had to go in and they had to get rid of some of the other stresses so that he didn't have to rely on the bentonite all the time, but he still takes it. I know he does because I talked to him, and that's been years and years and years ago. The other thing is this. When you work with ultrabiome, besides acids, the second thing that it's designed to do is it's designed to go in and work with leaky gut syndrome. It's designed to go in and work with the heavy metal toxicity and the poisons that are loaded and built up with inside that small enlarged intestine. And it's going to go in there and help us absorb those so that we're not leaking those toxins or poisons out of the bowel wall into other areas of the body, causing all kinds of havoc. Okay, so it's going to neutralize acid. It's going to go in and absorb all those heavy metals to prevent that leaky gut. Okay, and I will tell you that it's also because of the fiber and everything, it does really good to cleanse the bowel as well too. So not only is it acid, not is only getting rid of heavy metals, it will cleanse the bowel and move things that way. And by design, ultrabiome also works with blood sugar. It's a great one to work with glucose. I've seen people that have been pre-diabetic or insulin intolerant, or actually has been on insulin, and they get on this stuff and they start seeing their glucose start to reduce and start to go into more of a balanced state. I watched it the same way as far as other people that have more of the lower blood sugar. It's bringing the acid down then we have more of a stable environment as we work with the ultrabiome, as we bring the acid down, a stable, more stable environment to where we're balancing blood sugar. When the acids are really high, then it destroys all the nutrients, and that's why you're always going out there and trying to find cookies and candy and anything sweet to give you a little extra energy. Okay, and so anyway, the three things that it does: get rid of the over acid. The next thing is to get rid of all that crud, the leaky gut syndrome that causes that leaky gut syndrome, the heavy metals, the chemicals, anything that nature is going to help us absorb that and flush it out of the bowel. And it's going to go and help us start stabilizing glucose. And yes, I guess number 4, it helps clean the bowel. Okay, obviously if it's moving all that stuff, it will. Okay, now I just went in through a few notes down at the bottom here. I talked about different additional nutrients that might help with the bowel or inflammation and stuff like that that would be worth checking. Magnesium, again, if we need hydration of the bowel, obviously that's one of the best things to do. We talked about the probiotics, probiotic 11, elevate 11. Those are ones that I find that sometimes if the person is really struggling immune-wise and different things like that, that we will take and do that while we're cleansing the bowel and building the bowel. But for the most part, I kind of hold off till the end if I can, so that we can build it that way and we're not going to flush it out. We're not putting it in just to get rid of it. Protease. Excellent. It's a builder. It's the one that's going to take and help us get more out of our proteins. It's the one that's going to help us actually go in and do more of the building and the toning there. Okay, Super Omega. We know that Omega is one of the best ones for the bowel too, believe it or not, besides the joints and the circulatory system. Inflammation reducer, just like the DHA. Now you got the Nutricom, you got the B complex. All of those are set up to take and help with the nerves, which will help calm and heal and repair the bowel. And I threw a couple of enzymes in there too. The food enzyme, the peroxyzyme. Food enzyme, the difference between the two, peroxyzyme is going to go in and stabilize the digestive system. It's going to neutralize acids. Does great, helps with digestion, stimulation, absorption as far as the peroxyzyme. When we do the food enzyme, the difference between the peroxyzyme and the food enzyme is the food enzyme also goes in and helps support protein digestion, whereas the peroxyzyme is not necessarily set up for that. It's set up for all the other things with amylase and lipase and different things of that nature. But it has the HCl, it has the hydrochloric acid with the food enzyme, and that's what's different from those two. And so when we have a person that's struggling with protein digestion, that is one of the best ones to take and help out. Sometimes we have to have those things just to help us break the nutrients down to go in and help these areas of the body, because the individual is so much in trouble as far as their health. Got the omegas down again. We want to use the anti-inflammatories to reduce the inflammation in this condition. Probiotics, we want to get to where we can build that up. We want to do our best to manage stress. The bowels have a direct response as far as stress, you guys, and I told you that earlier. It's really important that we do our very best to create, in this type of condition with the IBS and IBD, the different things we're talking about here. Stress is huge, and it's bigger now than it's ever been. I watched the stress from, well, when I started taking and practicing with iridology back in the early 90s, it was crazy, because most of the people that come in my office, out of all the people that come in, there was probably less than, I don't know, 15% that even has stress rings. Okay, now everybody that comes into my office has some form of stress rings. Their nervous system is an absolute mess. So you know darn well that it's going to cause all kinds of conflict within the body, and it will do it to the bowel. The bowel is a muscle. The bowel is going to be reactive as far as that stress, because it's going to cause some issues. When we have overstimulation of adrenaline, when we have overstimulation that way to cause constriction of those muscles, that fight or flight and stuff, it's going to cause a lot of stress to the bowel, especially when we already have one that's inflamed and already irritated. Okay, so stress management is huge. So there's a whole bunch of things, and we'll go to the nervous system eventually here. And have we done the nervous system? We'll go and work with the nervous system. That's one of the ones we probably, we'll look at it, but that's probably one of the ones we'll definitely need to work with here pretty quick, because it's that important with what's going on. But the nervous system, we'll go in and start helping. We'll talk about that one of these next few classes here, because it's that important as far as helping every other area of the body. Let's see if I can even talk. Okay, I will tell you one thing that relaxes though. When I have people that come in my office, and this stuff, it does work very well. When you take B6 and you take magnesium, generally I run a 3-to-1, and I should put this down, 3-to-1 B6 or basically you're running, close to 300 mcgs of the B6. But for every 250 milligrams of magnesium, I'm running about, I don't know, 300 to 400 mcgs of B6. That combination does very good to relax the bowel, especially in the flares. Anybody that knows with the flare with the bowel, it's like the cramping or the gripping times 10. Okay? And then there can be a lot of bleeding, there can be diarrhea, there can be people that deal with the celiac, with the Crohn's, with the different things like that, Crohn's especially. It is just terribly painful. Okay, this is those two things will take and relax the bowel. Okay, before we get into the last part basically I just went in there and talked about the different individual herbs, some of the herbs that we've got on our list, broke them down as far as some of the different functions, or the properties I should say, that they have. But we're going to talk about parasites. Many conditions of the bowel can be tied into, besides like the heavy metal toxins and poisons that way that we're so much aware of now, can actually be tied to parasites, worms, and flukes. Okay, and I'm going to tell you this. A lot of people think, well, there's no way I could have that. I've never gone out of the country. I've never been in an area that should be an issue. Guess what? Stateside or in the United States, you guys, you can pick up parasites almost just as easy as you can anywhere else in the world. Okay, how can you? You can walk barefoot somewhere. All you that walk around barefoot, don't like the shoes? Sorry, my wife's sitting right here. I'm picking on her. I guess you're going to edit that, huh?
No, I'll leave it in.
Yeah, you can actually, stepping on parasites, you can absorb them through your feet. You can pick them out that way. You can inhale them. You can pick them out that way. You can eat food, pick them up that way. I mean, you can take it. It's really interesting, like strawberries. If you get into the fresh fruits and if they're not cleaned the way they should, you can pick them up that way. Parasites are so easy to end up with, okay? And any and everybody can have them. You know, it used to be back in the 1800s that they used to take and worm the kids, the dog, the cat. And you remember that was part of the full moon thing? Okay, everybody, lots of people that don't realize this, but what they used to do in order to get rid of the worms, the parasites and so forth that was causing so much problems to their body and their bowels, is they would take and go out on a full moon, and each one of them would have their own individual bucket of milk. It's a bucket, okay? So when we talk about mooning, this might make a difference here. This might just give you an idea where the story came from, okay? But they used to take and drop their drawers on a full moon, because why a full moon? Because the full moon is basically the time that the parasites and worms and flukes are the most active, and that's the time they breed the most, is in a full moon. It's crazy, so it's just like vampires, right? Or whatever it is on full moons. But yes, they are more active then than any other time of the month. And so the full moon is the best time to take and work with it to get rid of them. But what they used to do is they drop their drawers, they'd sit in that bucket of milk, and all the worms and the parasites and things like that was in that bowel would take and work itself to that sugar that was in the milk. And so that's how they would pull a lot of these things. So imagine tapeworms being eliminated and different things of that nature. It's like, can you imagine even just sitting there in that milk and having that happen? It just freaks me out a little bit. But anyway, guess what, guys? We don't have to do that anymore. We don't have to do that anymore. We've got some programs that are amazing to help us take and deworm things. I always laugh because I have people, they act like they freak out about it, and then they end up coming in my office just so happy about it. And these things, I call them pickers, okay? Because I know in order to get them, they've had to go in and pick these things out of the toilet, but they bring them in as trophies. I've seen them in paper towels. I've seen them in plastic bags. I've seen bottles. I've seen, it's just like they're so excited about what they've eliminated. And so even though they sound freaked out, they become quite excited about what they eliminate. So anyway, yes, you can and will see them. All the time, no. Some are microscopic enough that you don't see it. But when we work with the bowels and when we have a lot of bowel challenges, honestly, parasites can be one of the biggest problems. Okay, so don't hesitate to take and do that, to do some work as far as parasites. If you muscle test, well, I'd be muscle testing. If you work with iridology, pay attention, because if the radii solarises are in the eyes, you know darn well that we possibly, or very, very, very possibly have parasites, okay? And when we talk about like inflammation of that bowel, when we talk about irritation of the bowel, Parasites live in any heavy mucus membrane location of the body. That's their happy environment. So wherever there's mucus and phlegm is where they're going to be. Okay? And that's where they're going to live, and they'll create their homes in that, and then they'll just take and, of course, infest the body, bottom line. So we want to kill them off. We want to eliminate them. Know that that is one thing that can cause all kinds of inflammation and irritation in this case, the bowel, but anywhere in the body. There's 3 things that I use, and the 4th thing we'll talk about. But three things are just simple. Instead of getting all the craziness about all the stuff you need to do, kill and eliminate worms and parasites, I use 3 things. Number 1, black walnut, as you see down there, is the one that's going to kill the parasites, the worms, the flukes. Artemisia will do that too, and Artemisia has one of the herbs is called mugwort. Mugwort is the old, it almost sounds like a Harry Potter thing, right? Mugwort is the old biblical way that they killed worms and parasites back in the biblical time. It even talks about them as being one of the main things that helps with that. So Artemisia helps with that. Black walnut will also kill the eggs. Okay, that's the one thing that we want to make sure of, is we don't want to just go in there and just kill the adults and then be reinfested because of the eggs that they have laid, and they hatch, and then we start with the reinfestation. So black walnut would go in and obviously get rid of those eggs too. Okay, and then herbal pumpkin is nice because herbal pumpkin helps with the body to eliminate those worms, parasites, and flukes, but it almost targets it more to the bowel, those parasites, to where they can eliminate that way versus sinuses or skin. I've had people have boils and things come out that way. I've had people pick it out of anyway, we can go into all kinds of stories with parasites, and there's no reason to go there. But know that there's 3 things that I use that do very, very well together in combination. If you muscle test, you want to muscle test them together. But if you don't muscle test, and if you're not working with somebody, you could go in and just even use suggested amounts on these. Okay. I will tell you though, if you work with the parasites, you definitely want to work with the nervous system too. Okay, just a side note there. Another one that works really good, depending on the person and how infested the body is, pawpaw. They used to call it pawpaw celery. Pawpaw is amazing. I mean, it's one of the best things to go in and kill those dang parasites. It's like I can't say it. There are issues that individuals can have that can actually be caused by parasites that can be a life and death matter. And this pawpaw celery goes in and works with that type of environment. It's awesome to get rid of these abnormalities, if you will. Okay, so again, in heavy states, and it's probably not a bad idea, just as generality, to put a little bit extra pawpaw or a little pawpaw in with what you're doing with the black walnut, Artemisia, and herbal pumpkin. Okay.
Sounds like you're saying like grandpa or something.
Yeah, it sounds like grandpa or something like that. Pawpaw, or yeah. Anyway, it does amazing. Viruses, worms, parasites, flukes. Anyway, it does incredible. Okay. There is one that's called a parasite cleanse. If you want to take and just use the package cleanse with Nature Sunshine, which I will tell you, some of the things that I talked about are in that para cleanse, as a matter of fact. Okay. And that works really well with Nature Sunshine. I have seen people work with several things that, as far as even clove and black walnut. They actually use a green walnut to kill the flesh, eliminate parasites. There's a lot of things that can do it, but I'm just going to give you the basics here that I found that just the simplicity that's going to help with kill those. And the black walnut, Artemisia, and herbal pumpkin are probably 3 of the easiest ways to go in and get the best results. Yes, you can target like fenugreek and thyme to the sinuses to kill them in the mucous membranes of the sinuses, different things like that. So there's other things you can add to it. But as far as the single herbs, aloe vera, okay, would it kill them? No, but it helps soothe, it helps eliminate, or it helps as far as the elimination of that. Anemone is one that enhances the immune system. Anemone does very good to go in and help anything that's foreign or abnormal to the body, to help to rid it off. There again, there's the black walnut. That's going to regulate bowel, but it's also going to kill the parasites along with the eggs. Cascara, we know that that's going to be really good to go in and keep things moving and flushing as we kill the parasites off. We want the parasites dead before we flush them. Okay, is that always the case, and does that always happen? No, but for the most part it does. Okay. Garlic's amazing. Garlic is known as a natural antibiotic. It's good for your blood pressure. It's good for, there's so many things that garlic does well with yeast, fungus, candida conditions. But garlic also is amazing to kill parasites as well too. So garlic has an extreme, it has a really good property as far, or a stronger property as far as killing those parasites with garlic. Podiarco. Podiarco is probably one of the herbs out there that's one of the strongest as well too. It falls right in that category, and properties of what we talked about with the pawpaw, a blood purification as far as going in and flushing, eliminating parasites. I mean, Podiarco is incredible. So you can tell I'm pretty pumped up about a lot of these herbs because I've worked with them over 30 years and I've seen so many amazing things happen with them that you never thought was possible. As far as your combinations of things we're going to work with, there's one that's called it's cellular detox. I used to call it all cell detox. Well, it was all cell detox, and then Nature Sunshine changed the name. But it's formerly it was the all cell detox. Is now what we call cellular detox. Artemisia again, gastro health. Okay, here we go. Gastro health. What does that do? That is actually going to go get rid of the virus that causes H. pylori. Okay, so when you work with gastro health, this was put together to work with pyloric conditions. Okay, so that virus, when we deal with that type of situation, this gastro health is amazing, and I've watched incredible results with that. Again, herbal pumpkin, LBS2, lower bowel support. That's one that's going to keep. You know what? LBS2 is called lower bowel support now. It's not called LBS2.
Oh, I didn't know that changed.
Yeah, they just changed that. Okay, big note. Anytime you see the LBS2 on there, it is now called lower bowel support. Okay? That's what the acronym stood for anyway. Again, the pawpaw, there's one that's called LBX. LBX is LBX basically, and remember that the LBX, you can also do the LB extract. The LBX just has a little bit different variation as far as like some of the buckthorn and a few things like that. In it, in different properties than what's in the LBS2. So some people that can't handle the LBS2 or the cascara, LBX is a good one to take and check them on, or just the LB extract. Okay, protease, talked about that. That's one that anytime we have really strong abnormal tendencies, protease is a good one to go in and help with the body's immune responses and to strengthen the overall. Anyway, protease is excellent. And then we talk about the paracleanse. Okay, kind of wraps things up here. As you go down and look at what's going on here, what we've done, and Katie has done so well, and I want to bring her name up really quick too. Katie does so well to take, and as I put all these classes together, she's the one that types everything up for me. She's the one that makes it look all pretty and legible. She's the one that does all the work to make everything look great as far as the teaching part of it. And so what we've done is she's gone in and helped me to take and just go in and throw out the herbs that you see through here. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of the herbs, and know their properties. So that as you go and work with different things, you can actually understand their properties, okay? Just like we had the slippery elm in there, and I'm just going to read it really quick. It says slippery elm. Actually, there's a misprint right there. There's a Y missing. Slippery elm is a mild bulk laxative that absorbs toxins from the bowel. It is a contact healer and inside and out of the body, or outside, that coats and soothes and heals irritated and inflamed tissues. So putting that in layman's terms, guys, it's going to absorb the toxins. I didn't read that very well. It's going to absorb the toxins. It's going to help pull those toxins out. But it's also one of the ones that's going to help us to take and coat, if you will, mucus lining, coat, and to build that friendly flora within that bowel as well too. Okay, so what she's done is she's gone in and just given you the basic properties of what these different herbs do. She's also went in and put the different vitamins, the minerals in there that is good to take and pay attention to as far as the bowels are concerned. Again, I told you that as far as vitamins and minerals, magnesium is one of the best things you can do. B6 we talked about. Okay, there's some of these others you can look at in different situations as far as building the bowel and stuff. These are good to check on. Potassium, huge. Why? Potassium works with muscles. Okay, besides electrolytes, it works with muscles. When we talk about muscle cramps, okay, as far as the striated muscle, guess what? When you're cramping as far as the bowel, that's a muscle as well too. So potassium is significant. Also, potassium is supporting hydration as well too. Okay, just to wrap this up and give you a couple fun stories. I'm just going to share a couple fun stories real quick to wrap this up before we get done, and to show you the things that can happen. In the 30 years that I worked with people, we've had some things that you'd never believe happened. Mom, working as an iridologist, worked with a gentleman, and he come in and worked with us off and on for years and years and years. But he come in one time and he was really struggling and having some issues as far as his bowels. And anyway, Mom went in, set him up on a cleanse. That cleanse happened to be the Nature's Free, the liquid chlorophyll, the aloe vera, the bentonite, and so forth. And anyway, he got in that cleanse, and he was cleansing and cleansing, and I think that he was, I don't remember, it's been 30 years ago, so do I have the perfect quotes on this? No. But I think it was right around between 2 and 3 months. And he come in one day, and he had a 6-penny nail. Anybody knows what a 6-penny nail is? That's what he was carrying around. And when he walked in, Mom and I were standing in the foyer. He walked in, he said, "Hey, do you guys know what this is?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." And Mom's like, "Yeah, it's a 6-penny nail." She knows, because she used to help us. We do a lot of construction. She helped build. I was like, "Yeah, that's good." But he's like, "Well, guess what, guys?" He said, there's something important and significant about this 6-penny nail. And we were like, "So, okay, what are you building?" He says, "Well, what I was building, it was something that I was building back when I was a teenager, and I was helping Dad. And I was helping Dad, and we were building a barn, and we had a scaffolding along the side of the barn, and we were putting up 1x6s and 1x6s on the barn." And he says, "So I had all these nails in my mouth, and so I'd pull one out, hammer it in, move over, pull one out, hammer it in." And he said, "I stepped wrong. And when he stepped wrong, he fell back, and he swallowed one of those 6-penny nails." Now understand, this gentleman that's in front of us that I didn't tell you about, or I didn't tell you his age, that was when he was a teenager. He was in his later 70s at that time. Okay, just to get the idea. Sounds ridiculous, right? But he swallowed that nail. They took him to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Well, here's the deal. You'll either do one of two things. You'll either pass that nail, or it's going to rupture the bowel wall, and then we're going to have to go to work and find it." So automatically he assumed, because it never ruptured the bowel wall and he never had to have surgery, that he eliminated it somewhere in time. As he got started on that bowel cleanse and got into that second month as he was working with Mom, as he was taking and doing that cleansing, one day as he did that elimination, he heard this kind of ting in the toilet. And when he looked in there, there was that 6-penny nail that was evacuated. So it had fallen in a bowel pocket or something of that form, and it was something that had dropped in there and had been in that bowel for that many years. So no, this is how bodies can hold toxins and carry toxins and different things like that. And that's a perfect indication. And it was crazy because that nail looked like it was most of the part almost brand new. I mean, it's like I would have thought. Anyway, yeah, it was crazy. And definitely you could see where it set in some areas and it has some challenges there. But it also looked very new in a lot of places too. So, but that had been in there, guys, for 60 years. Okay, so keep that in mind. And it shows you just how long. And I would have never believed that. If you would have told me that story, I would have said you're absolutely crazy. And yet, that happened. I had another situation with myself. I had a young lady that come in. Her mom would come in and Dad come in with her. And they'd been working with this little girl for, probably off and on for a year, trying to find some things that would help her because she was just having so many problems. She was always so sick. I mean, she was sick to her stomach. She never had any energy. There's other things that went with it. Anyway, and I'm not going to talk about it just because I don't want to share some personal things, but I will tell you there were some major things that was happening there, and her body was basically just giving up. Okay, it got to that point. The elimination wasn't happening the way it should bowel-wise. The bowel, there was even a form of different stages of sepsis that they were worried about. And so when she come in to work with me, or come in to see if I had any indications of what might be going on, when we looked in her eyes, not only was she extremely acidic, but her bowels were absolutely a mess. They were some of the worst bowels that I'd ever seen. Now understand, this young lady was 14, just about ready to turn 15. And they'd been to several places, several doctors, alternative wise and also traditional wise, and to that point had had no help. So anyway, as we went in and read our eyes, we went in and muscle test, we went in and found the priorities. Obviously one of those priorities was the bowel. And as we started working with the bowel, and again, to be honest with you, I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 months or 3 months into it, because we worked quite a while to cleanse that bowel. In fact, we spent close to 8 months, I think, detoxing that bowel. That's how bad it was. But within that 2-month period, right around there, she came in one day, and we were starting to see she was getting a little bit of, a little bit of energy back. She had a little bit of a, brightening of the face. I mean, you could see the things were starting to happen in a better way. She was looking a little bit better. But she came in one day and her mom's like, okay, I think you need to tell Miles what's going on. And I'm like, uh-oh. And she says, Mom, I really don't want to. And she says, no, you need to tell Miles what's happening. Because with what we're doing here, obviously it's working, but he needs to know what's going on. And so she was kind of quiet there for a while, and then she says, well, since I've started this bowel cleanse, here again, this was the Nature Street liquid chlorophyll aloe vera that I was working with at the time. Also, we had a couple other things like some BPX and some liver support and stuff. But as we started cleansing this stuff, she started eliminating with her bowel movements pink napkins. Okay, and I know that sounds absolutely crazy, but she was eliminating pink napkins. And anyway, as we got talking, I'm just like, how in the world would you be eliminating pink napkins? She said, I know exactly why I'm eliminating pink napkins. And I said, what's that? Why? I said, why that? Because they were always pink too. I said, well, why? Do you know what happened? What took place? She says, well, Mom and Dad would never they don't let us leave the table unless we eat everything on our plate. And she says, I absolutely hate peas. And that's one of the things that Mom would cook 3 or 4 times a week. And she says, so not being able to take and leave the table until everything was eaten, she says, I would take the peas, put them in there, smash them in the pink napkin, because Mom always decorated the table with pink napkins. That was sitting on the table there. And she says, and I'd take those peas and I'd mash them up in napkins, roll it up, and then I'd take it and put it in my mouth and swallow it with milk. And that's exactly how I got my peas down. And so over that time, it had gone in and caused all this blockage and congestion. I'm surprised that she didn't have impacted bowel, and probably she was close to it, because it was shutting everything down. So like I say, we were 8, almost 9 months eliminating pink napkins. Now you guys, honestly, you sit there and think, how in the world could that even be possible? You need to know that the bowel can hold on to a lot of toxins and poisons for years and years and years. Many people deal with toxins when they die, that's in their bowel still from when they were young kids, that was never cleansed. And obviously whenever those toxins are in there, they are going to cause a problem. They're going to cause an issue. With this little gal, once we got her turned around, got her cleansed, got her doing good, got her energy back, this little girl just lightened up. Her whole world changed. In fact, I remember she came in one day and it's like she went from depression to hating life to wanting to die, even suicidal tendencies. Like I said, there's some different issues, to where she just glowed. And she came in one day and she was so dang happy because she had been the winner of the Junior Miss pageant. And she just started seeing her life move in a positive way. And it's amazing how we can take and feel better, have a better life, have a happier life. When we can get all these toxins and all this congestion out of our body, we just feel better about life. We have the energy towards life. And we're able to take and have the good results as far as health, as far as life is concerned too. So with that, just a couple stories that just to kind of get you thinking, because you know what? Sometimes we go and do some of this cleansing, you never know what could happen. I could tell you stories about small toys. I could tell you stories about coins. I can just know that all kinds of things eliminate with the bowel. So I challenge you. I challenge you to take a look at what you're doing as far as your intestinal health, what's going on with your intestinal colon. If you're not having those eliminations like we talked about, you guys, you now have a source or a way to go in and start helping your body out. The sooner that you can get started on this, it will amaze you down the road how much difference is going to make in every area of your body, you guys. So I challenge you to take a look at this. Get yourself involved in an area where you need to be to Start building your intestinal health back to where it needs to be, and start getting your life back on track, because it's worth it. It's there's an emotional side of the intestinal colon region, and emotional side is Chinese tell us that every physical problem we have, and I want you to think of this as I just close here. They say that every physical problem we have is based from an emotional issue. Now, I will go on and tell you that some of these emotional issues are also generational. They're things that have been passed along. So lots of times they're not all just yours. They can be others. But guess what? They're still yours to deal with. Okay? They're still yours to deal with because they are controlling your life each and every day. They have play in your life some way, somehow, every day. So, when you work with the emotional part of the bowel, probably the biggest definition of emotionally what's going on is just holding on to old crap. Okay? Doesn't say crap Chinese wise, but it talks about holding on to old issues. Just not letting old things go. And because of that, all this is doing is creating more of a toxic brain, a toxic life, a toxic lifestyle, a more of a discomfort towards life, or more even a hatred of life, or holding on to old anger or resentment issues, or issues that no longer are important, okay? And yet they're controlling your life, and you're allowing them to control your life. Some of it's subconscious. As we start cleansing the bowel, you will even do some emotional cleansing, and all of a sudden you'll start to recognize that it's like, oh my gosh, I had no clue how angry I was, or oh my gosh, I had no clue, how depressed I'd been. Okay, so I challenge you to go in, take care of your bowel health. Get yourself turned around doing well. Take care of your family, get them doing well. Start creating some habits that are healthy in a way that's going to allow the bowel to cleanse and allow your body to be healthy. And if we do that, my gosh, just think about all the stuff that's going on in the world today. Think about the hate crimes. Think about the race. Thinking about all that stuff, you guys. And without going into all that stuff, but I mean, look at the stuff that's happening in our world today, protesting, all the things that are happening. What would happen if they were to go in and cleanse their bowels, if they were to go in and cleanse the toxins out of their body, if they were going in to eliminate these old issues and stuff like that? Where would our world be? Where would they be? Would they be happier? Would they start having joy in life? Or would they still be angry and resentment and wanting to seek revenge? Where would they be? So I challenge you, if that's something that would help them out, where would you be? Okay? So let's take charge of our intestinal colon region. Let's take and build it in a way that's going to be the healthiest for us. And not only that, but to teach our families as well, too, to have that good, healthy support. And with that, I'm going to take and close for the night. Now, the one thing that I am going to talk about is, just really quick.
Questions. You might want to ask if anybody
Oh, yeah,
has
we'll talk about the questions really quick, too. Just remember that this is the nutritional support. On July 1st, we're actually going to go in and do a class. It's what? I don't even know how much it is.
$30.
$30 for the class. $30 for the class. It will go in, and besides the nutrition, that class is going to teach iridology, the areas to look for in the iris of the eye that will indicate the health of the bowel. Okay. It's going to go in and teach the nutritional support that goes with that as well, too. And it's also going to go in and talk about the anatomy and the physiology, how it works, how it functions. We're going to teach those parts to help out so you have an understanding of that. And we're doing this with every system a month. We're taking a system a month. We're going through that. By the time we get to the end of the systems, you're going to have a really strong knowledge as far as how to work with the body, because we've gone through all these systems, and you're going to be able to do so well as far as working with people. Okay? So July 1st, we're going to have that. And the other thing is I do talk about also the emotional stuff, which we call the rayed, if you will, of the iris of the eye, the emotional stuff that goes on. Okay, so I challenge you to be part of that. Be part of that. I don't know if we're going to actually have it. I was hoping, like this class, I was hoping to be able to open it up to where people that are close to us could come in and be right there. And maybe by July 1st we can get that taken care of. I don't know.
The only issue would be if the room's available.
Yeah.
So if the room is available, we will.
Okay, so if we have the availability, which we're working on, we're going to make it so that the ones that are close to us, if they want to come and be in class and learn, do it that way, which sometimes that's the best way to learn with some people, then you can do it. And then we're always going to do this as far as the virtual, so no matter where you're at, okay, you can take and learn with what we're doing here and start getting some results in your life.
We will, just to add to that, it
Go
will
ahead.
be limited because of social distancing. A room that can normally
Okay.
hold 40
Right.
people can only hold 7. So you just,
Oh.
so if you want to be in the room, you need to register first and
Okay.
call Amelia.
Sorry guys, you can't see Teresa in the background, but there's only going to be 7 allowed in the classroom, so it's going to be the first 7 because of the social distancing, because of the coronavirus. Sorry. So if you want to be one of those, yeah. If you want to be one of those 7, sorry, I shouldn't have gone there, but if you may want to be one of those 7, get enrolled fast and make sure that you let us know that you're going to be in class so that we know that you're going to be one of those 7, okay? I'm going to open this up to any questions that you might have that I can help you out with. That way, obviously I don't know everything, but if there's anything I can help you out with or answer, I would love to do that right now. So we'll open that up for the next couple of minutes if there are any. I'm going to have a drink real quick.
I don't think we have any.
All right.
Not so far.
Well,
Oh, can you cleanse if you have Crohn's or colitis? This is from
Absolutely.
Tricia.
absolutely, you can. In fact, here's the deal. You're not going to get the upper hand on those issues if you don't first cleanse. Lots of times the problem is because of the toxins and the problems that are going on in the bowel. That is the cause of what's causing that Crohn's. I work with many people that have, well, I shouldn't say many. I worked with several people. I have people I'm working with right now, and we get excellent results as far as Crohn's. And guess what? You've got to cleanse the bowel. It's not even can you, you have to. Okay? So the answer to that is yes. And we've also given you, in there, if you look, we've given you even some of the things that are going to help out with the Crohn's as far as the nutritional support. So if you go to, what page was it on there? Golly. Oh, okay. So it talks about the over here to this page as far as the inflammatory bowel disease. There also is Crohn's underneath there too. Celiac underneath there too. So you're seeing the things that we can use to cleanse with and to help out with as far as getting things to move out of the body and detox so that we can start getting an upper hand on what's causing that irritation, whether it be the Crohn's or what have you. So the answer is yes, absolutely.
Okay. Anyone else? Don't be shy.
Nope, ask the questions.
I don't have any more right now, so type fast.
Guess what, guys? Problem is there's just a lot of us that are just full of it, you guys. And so the sooner we can cleanse things out and get back to life is just better. And you know what? Honestly, every one of us, we have some work to do here. There's not one of us that's exempt. I have people that come into my office that we go in and start working with them, but it's interesting in the fact that they will tell me, oh, no, I don't need to cleanse my bowels, because it's like, that's the one thing I do very well with. I have my eliminations 2 and 3 times a day, and yet I'll look in their eyes and the bowel pockets, and the challenges that are going on there are pretty big. And when we go to muscle test and it ends up being one of the priorities, then they're like, how could that be? I eliminate every day 2 or 3 times a day. And I'm like, are they good eliminations? Oh, yeah. And I'm like, okay. But the bowel, or the priority is to work with the bowel when we do the muscle testing. And when we go in and start that program, they come back and they're like, oh my heck, where does all that stuff come from? And that is the answer with the true bowel cleanse that people have, or the response, I should say, that they have, is that now they're looking at it, it's like, where in the world did all of that come from? And yet that's what's sitting in your body. I got people that the body's so toxic that anal fistulas are an issue. Anal cracks being infected and bacterial issues that are there. Fissures that are there as far as the rectal region, which is all the toxicity within that bowel that is causing that. Okay. I got ladies with, anyway, we go into, it's like even the stress of the perineum to the anal region to all those areas, hemorrhoids. Guess what, guys? Outside of having babies, one of the biggest causes of hemorrhoids, that's a rupture, okay, is due to a constipation issue. Okay, sometimes the bowel is so constipated that only the fluids are getting through, and what we call a diarrhea is actually an extreme constipation issue. Okay, so anyway, we can really get into a lot of wild and crazy things here, you guys, and you will. We're going to learn a lot of things over the years, over the next little while here. So, is there any more questions?
Yes. What about if you're breastfeeding? Can you do a bowel cleanse?
Okay, great question. Let's talk about two things. Number one, can you take and do a bowel cleanse while you're breastfeeding? Yes. You are limited to what you can and can't do, though. And the reason why I say that is you've got to be more careful when you're breastfeeding or nursing. You've got to be careful to not do anything that would create more of a laxative response that's going to cause that to the baby as far as the laxative response. So in other words, ones that you're going to have to be careful with when you're breastfeeding. Cascara. Too much of that cascara could also cause the baby to be loose too. And we don't want to create diarrhea with the baby, and we don't want to create the problems that diarrhea can cause as far as dehydration and so forth. So yes, you can still do cascara, but you just got to be cautious not to overdo it. Okay. LBS2, the same thing with the ones that we watch for is LBS2, cascara, LBX, black walnut. Some of those are the ones that will actually cause more, if you will, loose bowel as far as the baby. Some people say, well, gosh, if I'm going in and breaking all that stuff up, am I going to pass that through my milk to the baby? And it's like, no. That's not going to happen. I mean, you got to remember, with that production, it's just amazing with motherhood, how we're not going to have that issue. You can still cleanse the bowel. We just got to make sure that we're not putting something in your body that we pass to the baby that can cause problems to the baby. And like I say, most of them are just mainly too much of a property of an herb that's going to cause the bowel to be loose. Okay, I don't know if that made sense at all or not. Okay,
Yeah, that makes sense.
the second thing is this: can you cleanse the bowel when you're pregnant? Yes and no. Again, the same herbs that I just told you about, you need to be cautious with. You need to watch it to where you don't overdo it. Senna is another one. Cascara, LBS, LBX. What else did I say? Black walnut, that's the other one. You got to watch them and be careful with them, because with pregnant ladies, that actually can cause contractions. Okay, so you got to be cautious that we're not causing that contractions and creating a problem as far as the pregnancy and issues that way too. And yet you can still cleanse. Can you do bowel detox? Heck yeah. Can you do bowel detox with slippery elm? Heck yeah. Can you do gentle move? Yes. Can you do some overall just like clean start? Yeah, you can even do clean start. I've got pregnant ladies, we've done clean start. Cleanse out their bowels, it cleanses out their gallbladder so they don't have to get their gallbladder taken out.
Breastfeeding though too.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
So my question would be toxins. So if you're cleansing, it's kind of like you sweep a room and all the toxins go up in the air. Is the baby getting some of those toxins?
Again, what I said, and that's kind of what I covered just a few minutes ago.
Okay,
yes.
I don't quite agree.
No, that toxin is not going to pass through your milk and into the baby.
Okay.
Why? Because that's all filtered through the liver, okay? That's all filtered through the liver, and it's going to keep the breast milk like I say, motherhood is amazing, because elimination systems is going to work only elimination. It's going to keep those toxins out of the things that are essential and important to the body. So when we nurse, not we, but when ladies nurse, oh, you can, never mind. We go ahead and do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah, we won't talk about the movie. But you got to remember that only the good stuff is passing through the milk. Now, there's times that it's like, yeah, any herb that you take, that will pass through your milk, you guys. I have a lot of people that we get rid of colic conditions even with breastfeeding by the mother taking catnip instead of the infant, okay? Or on and on and on. There's times that the infant will have some issues, and some of the best ways to take and do it is do it through the mother, because it passes through the milk and helps the baby, okay? So the answer to Teresa's question again, that is one that, yes, it's not going to pass through your milk. It's not going to be an issue that way as far as the toxins, okay? The healthy, good stuff is going to be separate of the bad stuff. And so it's not going to be a problem as far as that's concerned.
Okay, cool. No more questions. I think we're good to wrap up.
All right. All right, you guys. Well, we wish you the best. Hope you have a great night. Hope you learned something, got some information you can take and do something with. Now you're looking at it and saying, oh my gosh, the whole family needs to take and do a bowel cleanse. Problem is, do we have enough bathrooms? I'll leave that with you. Have a good night. Talk to you later.
Yeah, it's off.
Okay.
So I messed up.
What's that?
I messed up.
Uh-oh.
When you start it, like you can have settings where it'll just automatically start recording the minute you start it. But I started it, and then I had to stop it. I can't remember why. So then I restarted it. But when I restarted it, it didn't record. But luckily, I noticed within 5 minutes. I'm sure. So
So
but it is recording right
that's
here.
okay, which I beat around.